Have you ever tried tracking down a problem in your Jeep and you do this and it didn't fix it, and you do that and it didn't fix it, and you try this, and then you think you found what the real problem is, but it's something you don't know if you're really wanting or willing to tackle? Well, that's what we're facing today on this episode. Stay tuned. I got this Jeep back in the fall, and I've had all kinds of problems with it, doing maintenance on it, and then doing some preventive maintenance on it, as you saw maybe in previous episodes. One of the problems I've had is this intermittent misfire on all 6 cylinders, and it's erratic. And I've tried changing plugs, changing wires, put new fuel injectors in, a new fuel rail, all those things that come to mind right away, only to discover it may be the distributor, because I have a little play in my distributor, and all it takes is a little play for that rotor to misfire when it's going around and the engine is running. So today we're going to put in a new distributor and see if that solves the problem. I've had this distributor for a long time. Well, I've had it for a month or so, and have kind of procrastinated doing it. You ever had any maintenance problems you procrastinate on a little bit? Well, today that all ends, and we're going to put this new distributor in and see if we have the problem solved or not. Let's get at it. We're going to replace this distributor, and first thing is to get down and back out the screws on the distributor. You want to disconnect the sensor, cam sensor. Take the cap off this distributor. I like to just, first of all, we'll take the coil wire off, take the cap up, and just raise it up, and let's just get it out of our way for right now. We see the rotor is turned at about like 230. Makes it a little hard to estimate. I'm not pointing at anything in particular. So I probably want to turn that a little bit. I want to turn that rotor till it's in a more natural position. Now, I cleaned off the block there, put a piece of tape on it, putting this in the very center of that rotor, and then coming over and marking the block where the center of that rotor is. Doing that because rather than doing the dead center and having to turn the front and all that kind of stuff, we put the new rotor in here. It will line up just like that, and it should work. Okay, now we've got to get that bolt off the bottom, and to do that it's going to take a get this coil wire off this side too. It's kind of in the way. That's a little nut down here that holds the distributor in. Okay, you have finger loose. There's the bolt. Now the distributor can come out. As you can see, it's pretty dirty down here. I'm going to keep that dirt away from the hole. We have the new distributor. And what we want to do is take this new distributor, line up the bolt hole there, then this should be pointing right at the mark, but because it's going to rotate, bring it over at one click. Too far. And that looks to be about right. So now we'll put that bolt back in. That holds this in place. And as long as nothing has moved, we should be in good shape. It's a long bolt for what it has to do down there. Okay, so you got that good and tight. Distributor's in there. You need to hook the cam sensor back up. And then we have a new cap. Get the new cap on there. Screw it down. Oops. Well, we've got to back this out again. Take the distributor out again. Because we forgot to put the gasket back in. Little stuff is what can really mess you up in these types of things. Little things. Well, maybe we can do that with that on there. Which means we need to back this off again. One of the things about working on stuff like this, you've got to pay attention. That gasket messed me up. Okay, so we had to take it out, put the gasket back in, put it back in again, and we're back to where we just left off. Now it's a matter of transferring wires from the old distributor cap onto the new distributor. We know that number one, on the cap, if you put the cap up the same way, this one, which is number one, would go on what's marked here as number one. And then we can go around the cap take off each one as it goes and snap it on to the next one. Now, put a coil wire on, put it on the coil, and bring it up and put it on the coil spot on here. Now the moment of truth. Well, let's crank it up and see what happens. Well, the distributor is in. It runs fine. It's started up. Now the way I did it is a little different than some say you have to do it. Some say you have to put a distributor in by rotating your motor until you get to the top compression stroke on number one cylinder, and then you put the distributor in. As a matter of fact, most distributors nowadays come locked into that position. It's about a 5 o'clock position on the rotor. And that's true. That's maybe the proper way to do it. But also, you can take the distributor out if you're very careful and put the rotor back in exactly where the old rotor was, because that's where your engine was, that's where your cam is, that's where the firing was at that particular time when you take it out. Now, you can't move anything after you start that process, but that's what we chose to do today, and it worked. It worked out just fine. I'm only one person in here, so I couldn't really get underneath and turn the crank and make sure it lines up on the 0 timing mark at the top end of the compression stroke of the number one cylinder. So kind of out of necessity, I went that route. I felt like if it didn't work, I could always go back to square one and do the compression stroke, but it did work. Sometimes you just got to give it a try. Glad you watched today. Hey, why don't you subscribe and join us on this mission, on this journey that we're going through. Hit the notification button so you get notified of new videos we're putting up. Generally every Saturday there'll be a new video posted either about maintenance or mods or missions that we were on. So join us, and we'll be happy to get to know you on this journey. I hope your journey is full of joy and adventure. Thanks for tuning in.